The GOP 2016 presidential candidates presented a more united front than ever before during Wednesday night's debate in response to obvious liberal bias from the debate moderators. While the candidates didn't always agree on everything, they certainly acted like they were playing for the same team, particularly in strong agreement whenever the topic of Hillary Clinton was brought to the table. Last night, we heard the Republicans' responses to the GOP debate, and tonight we'll hear from the Democrats. With me to discuss his thoughts is Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha. Chuck, thank you for being here tonight.
Good to be here. Thank you.
What was your reaction to Wednesday night's debate? Why do you think the candidates went after Hillary and not after Bernie Sanders?
Hillary has universal name ID. She has lots of money, and her name is Hillary Clinton. There's one thing about Hillary Clinton. Either there's people who love her or people who hate her. There's not very much middle ground. And when it comes to Republicans, I don't have to tell you where they line up. So it's good throwing red meat to the base when you go after Hillary Clinton, because they have to win and differentiate themselves from the rest of the field.
Now, there was a lot of controversy afterwards about the supposed liberal bias from the moderators. What did you think of the moderators? Did they ask appropriate questions? Were they a little bit too liberal in their questioning of the candidates?
Look, I thought the questions were a little crazy myself. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democratic activist. I'm a Democratic consultant. I don't think that narrative coming out of any debate should be about the moderators or the station. You should be talking about the differences between your policies, between your fellow Republicans on who wants to take on the Democratic nominee. But I'll even say, as a Democrat, it seemed like there was too many of the gotcha questions. I would love to see these crazies kind of go after each other on their own crazy ideas. And whoever comes out of that, we're willing to take them on. But it shouldn't come out of any debate being about the moderators.
But how is that possible to do to differentiate between the candidates, to have them talk about their differences when the questions are about fantasy football or the moral character of one of the candidates as supposed by another candidate? How can they even differentiate or talk about the issues when they're getting questions like that?
Well, if I was taking care of a candidate, and I've done that a lot in debates when I had one of my candidates running for president, is you always teach them, no matter how bad the question is, to pivot to the point you want to make. And the point you're going to want to make is to make a difference based on policy between you and the other people on the stage. I think some of the candidates did a remarkable job. I think Ted Cruz, who's been really down in the polls at less than 4%, really made himself stood out by calling them out. And then I was very impressed that almost by memory, he could tell you how the moderators had went after each individual person based off of some fantasy football or doing math. I thought that was a good point for him. In the day I read that he raised $1.3 million after the debate.
Yeah, I read that as well. I was not surprised. That was a very standout moment for him. And when I was watching the debate, I was also impressed. I noticed that same thing, that he went down the line and stated what question each candidate had got that he considered to be biased. But I think the media bias is one of the political issues that differentiates the candidates, not just from each other, but from Democrats, because they believe that the culture of big government is pervasive in our society and that it starts with the media, that the media is in the back pocket of liberals. And so that's an important topic to be brought up. Like you said, Ted Cruz really capitalized on that. So did Marco Rubio. What did you think of his responses? Was it a breakout moment for him?
I think Rubio is trying to position himself to be the stalwart of the establishment. I think that because you have Ben Carson and you have Donald Trump garnering over 56% of the total primary vote with the latest poll that's came out after the debate, even though the polling questions were done before the debate, you have this whole group of people trying to say who's going to be the next man to stand up, who's going to be the next person or the next candidate. It could be Carly Fiorina. It does not have to be a man. And I think he's trying to position himself, as I think uniquely, that's why him and Bush went after each other, because I think they're fighting to be that mainstream Republican who, at the end of the day, I think pundits on the right, voters on the right, think that the Ben Carsons and the Trump will fade off to the side and some establishment will bubble to the top. And Rubio's trying to set himself up to be that way. And as a Latino Democratic consultant, I'll be honest and say that does bother me.
It seems like maybe they were battling for the establishment money then, in your opinion. Now, of these candidates on the stage, the main stage and the secondary debate, who would you as a Democrat like to see up against Hillary Clinton in the regular election?
Look, at the end of the day, I want somebody who's the easiest to beat. So I want to go after a Ben Carson. I want to go after a Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump looks very formidable. You may say, Chuck Rocha, why would you, Democrat, want to go after the guy who's in first place with unlimited money and universal name ID? Because you never know what Donald Trump's going to say. And I'll say this, the general electorate will look much different than what a Democratic or a Republican primary will look like as far as a lot more voters taking place. So if I had to hedge my bets, I'd love to take on one of the two frontrunners today.
Now, speaking of the two frontrunners, both political outsiders, Ben Carson, Donald Trump, they continue to lead in the polls. Why do you think that is? Are people just tired of the career politicians? Do they want to see something different? What do you think? What do you think is going to come from them?
I love this question because I've been doing politics and running campaigns for 24 years, and I've never in the history of running campaigns seen such an electorate that was so fed up. I say it all the time when I say there's a huge group of people who are sick and tired of just being sick and tired. You see it not only with Ben Carson and with Donald Trump, but you also see it with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has raised over $26 million in the last quarter by 800 different individuals writing him an average of $30 check. You see Ben Carson, who raised, I forgot, $2-3 million over like a 48-hour period after the first debate. So when you see all these average Americans it's easy to say, I'm going to support you, I'm going to write something on my Facebook wall. But when they write you a check for $25, that's a whole nother level of activism that we've never seen before.